In this class, we are going to learn how to interpret and solve questions on word problem leading to quadratic equation. Okay, let's start with the first question. If 3 times a certain number is subtracted from twice the square of the number, the result is 5. What are the possible values of the number? Okay, now please, I want you to pay attention. Word problem. Okay, word problem, that is ROB. Okay, word problem. Now, see, we are told that 3 times a certain number is subtracted from twice the square of the number. The first step is that let the number be a letter. You understand? Represent the number by a letter. In this case, I'm going to choose X. Okay, let the number be X. Solution. Let the number be X. Okay, now I'm interpreting the question now. Okay, you know that we are given the question in word problem. The first step in solving that question is that we have to make an equation out of the problem, out of the word problem that we are given. You understand? So that's what I'm trying to do now. Now go back to the question. The first statement said that if 3 times a certain number is subtracted from twice the square of the number. Now if I say that, listen, if I ask you to subtract 3 from 2, hello? If I ask you to subtract 3 from 2, what would be the expression of that statement? Subtract 3 from 2. That means that I'm going to have 2 minus 3. Is that not it? Now, if I ask you to subtract 4 from 5, that means that I'm going to have 5 minus 4. You understand? That is subtract 4 from 5. That means I'm going to have 5 minus 4. Now, go back to the question now. We are given that 3 times a certain number is subtracted from twice the square of the number. Now, that means that twice the square of the number simply means that if the number is x, the square of the number is what? X squared. Hello? Listen very carefully and don't be confused, okay? Listen, it's simple. All you have to do is that you just have to understand the question, okay? And then interpret it. See, 3 times a certain number is subtracted from twice the square of the number. The square, let the number be x. The square of the number is what? X squared. That is, I'm going to square x squared. I'm going to square x because I've said let the number be x. So the square of x is what? X squared. You understand? So if you look at the last if you look at that statement, from twice the square of the number. Twice means the number is twice. That means I'm going to have 2 multiplied by x. That is what? 2x squared. Hello? So here I'm going to have 2x squared. If 3 times a certain number, so 3 times a certain number means 3 times x, because I've said let the number be x. Let that certain number be x. You understand? Let that certain number be x. 3 times a certain number is subtracted from the square of the from twice the square of the number. Twice the square of the number is what? 2x squared. You understand? Okay? Now, we are told that 3 times a certain number is subtracted from twice the square of the number. That means I'm going to have 2x squared minus 3x. Please, I hope you get what I'm doing. I'm just trying to make sure that you understand, because if you didn't understand how to interpret this, then even though you know how to solve quadratic equation, if you didn't learn how to interpret the question, if you didn't learn how to interpret the question, you might have problem. You understand? You might have some, you might make some mistake. Okay, and that's why I take time. It's not that we have not done. I'm very sure we've learned how to solve quadratic equation in our previous class, but here we have word problem, where you are required to make your equation out of it. You understand? So I want you to pay attention, okay? So here I've already interpreted that statement. 3 times a certain number is subtracted from twice the square of the number. That is, twice the square of the number is what? 2x squared minus 3 times a certain number. Since I've already said that, let the number be x. Okay? So now let's proceed. The result is 5. So that means 2x squared minus 3x equals to 5. That is, when I subtract 3 times a certain number from the square or from the twice of the square of that number, I got 5. You understand? So this is the interpretation. Now we are asked to find the number. Hello? We are asked to find the number. Now see, I'm very sure you'll be able to solve this. But what they want to test is that, are you able to interpret the question? Because they know, the examiner knows that if you are unable to get the right interpretation, even if you solve the question, you won't get the right answer. Okay? The examiner knows that your ability to interpret the question and get the answer right is very important. So they gave it a word problem. Even though you can solve this question, if you are unable to interpret the question rightly, you won't be able to get the right answer. Okay? So it is very important that you pay attention. Now we have come here. We are asked to determine the value of x. To solve this quadratic equation, we can make use of either factorization method, we can make use of the completing the square method, and we can make use of the quadratic formula as we've learned in our previous class. You can use any of this method. But here, I'm going to be using factorization method. Okay? Now, let's proceed. To solve this using the factorization method, I'm going to have first bring the constant term to the left hand side of the equation. Okay? I want this quadratic equation to be like this: ax squared plus bx plus c. I want it to look like this. You understand? So what I'm going to have at the right hand side of the equation should be 0. Okay? So I'm going to move this constant term to the other side of the equation. So here the quadratic equation becomes 2x squared minus 3x minus 5 equals to 0. Do you understand? Okay? Now from this point, if you want to solve this quadratic equation using the factorization method, the first step is that we've done this in our previous class, so I'm going to skip many of the steps. You see, just take the product of the first term and the second term. Okay? First term is 2, second term is what? Negative 5. Because this quadratic equation, the value of a is not unity. A is the coefficient of the highest power of the unknown. You understand? The coefficient of the highest power of the unknown is what? 2. So a is not unity. B is what? Negative 3. And c is what? C is negative 5. So you can see that in this quadratic equation, the coefficient of x squared is not unity. So because the coefficient of x squared is not unity, I'm going to take the product of the coefficient of x squared, which is a, and negative 5, which is c. So a multiplied by c is equals to 2 multiplied by negative 5, which is equals to what? Negative 10. Do you understand? Now, having taken the product of a and c, hello, please pay attention, okay? I'm just trying to refresh what we've learned in our previous class, okay? Now, I want to solve this quadratic equation using the factorization method, okay? But if you look at this quadratic equation, a is not unity. If a is unity, that means that a will be 1. But in this quadratic equation, a is what? 3. A is 2, sorry. A is 2. That means that a is not unity. Are you paying attention? Now, because a is not unity, I'm going to take some step, and that is what I'm doing. To solve this using the factorization method, first take the product of a, which is 2, and the constant term, which is negative 5. So I have negative 10. Okay? Now, the second step is that you have to bring out the second term. The second term in this quadratic equation is what? B. You understand? So the product of a and c is what? The product of a and c is 10, and the second term, which is b, is what? B is negative 3. Okay, the product of a and c is what? Negative 10, and the second term is what? Negative 3. Now, listen. Having gotten to this point, the next step is that you have to think of two numbers such that when you take the product of these two numbers, you are going to have negative 10. And if you add these two numbers together, you are going to have negative 3. Listen. Think of two numbers. such that their product will be equals to negative 10 and their sum will be equals to negative 3. What are those two numbers? Should we use negative 5 and negative 2? Let's check. Negative 5 and negative 2. Negative 5 times negative 2, that will give us what? Negative 10. Negative 5 plus negative 2, that will give us negative 7. So we cannot use this. This is not correct. Think of another two number. Let us use negative 5 and positive 2. Negative 5 and positive 2. Negative 5 times positive 2, that is negative 10. So I'm going to have negative 10. Negative 5 plus 2. Let me just do like that. Negative 5 plus 2, that will be negative 3. You can see that this gives us what we are looking for. So we are going to make use of negative 5 plus 2. Hello? We are going to make use of negative 5 plus 2. Now, since you have already gotten those two numbers, the next step is that you are going to replace those two numbers by, you are going to replace B. Please listen. You are going to replace B by those two numbers. Are you paying attention? So what I need here is negative 5 plus 2. Okay? Now, I'm going to replace B by these two numbers. Okay? So here I'm going to have 2x squared minus 3. Okay, now I'm not going to write minus 3. I'm going to replace minus 3, which is B, by minus 5 plus 2. Hello, listen, this is simple, okay? All you have to do is just to pay attention. I'm trying to solve this using the factorization method. And if you miss our first class, if you miss the previous class, you can revert back to the video on the channel and watch those classes, okay? That will give you more understanding, okay? I take time to explain what I'm explaining right now, okay? See, I'm going to replace this B by this negative 5 and 2, okay? So, instead of negative 3, I'm going to have, hello, listen, I'm going to have negative 5 plus 2 x minus 5 equals to 0. You understand? Okay? Negative 5 plus 2, that will give me what? Negative 3. So, if I solve what is in if I solve this bracket, I'm still going to have negative 3. You understand? Okay? So, here, let's proceed. Just open the bracket with x. 2x squared minus 5x plus 2x minus 5 equals to 0. So, having gotten to this point, I'm going to rearrange this equation, okay, so as to make the solving simple, okay. So, I'm going to have 2x squared plus 2x minus 5x minus 5 equals to 0, okay. Now, we can factorize. Okay. Here, I'm going to have 2x into bracket x plus 2. Because what is common to this side, okay, let me divide it into 2. I divide, hello, please listen, hello, just pay attention, okay, you are going to understand. I divide this equation into 2. This is the first part and this is the second part, okay. Now, when I got here, I factorize. What is common to 2x squared and 2x? What is common is 2x, you understand? Even it's not plus 2, it is plus 1. What is common to 2x squared and 2x is what? What is common to 2x squared and 2x is what? 2x. So I factorize 2x. Then I have x plus 1, okay? Listen, if you take the product of 2x and x, you are going to have what? 2x squared. If you take the product of 2x and 1, you are going to have what? 2x. You understand? So when I got to this point, I divide this equation into 2. The first part being here and the second part being here. Then I first factorize the first part. That is why we call this method factorization method, okay? So I call this part the first part. Then let's proceed to the second part. Let us factorize the second part. Here I'm going to have what is common to negative 5x and negative 5. What is common is negative 5. You understand? So I'm going to have negative 5 into bracket x plus 1. Hello? If you didn't understand how to solve quadratic equation using the factorization method, I have done many examples and questions on it. Just check the description of this video or you should go back to the channel, check the playlist quadratic equation. You are going to see various questions I've already solved on factorization method. Okay, it's very important that you know how to solve. It is very important that you know how to solve quadratic equation using all the three methods. You understand? Because you might come across questions that will specify that you should solve this equation using the factorization method. How do you want to go about it? Okay, so please, it is very important that you note that. So this is equals to 0. Now, let me give you an hint. Anytime you factorize a quadratic equation, what is in this first bracket must be equal to what is in this second bracket. So if you factorize your own and you realize that what is here is not the same thing as what is there, that means that something is wrong. Okay, now here I'm going to, what is outside this bracket is 2x. Here I have minus 5. So I'm going to connect this and this together. So here I'm going to have 2x minus 5 equals to 0. Now you can see that we have the same content inside the first and the second bracket. So I'm going to choose 1. X plus 1 equals to 0. Okay, do you understand? Now, having gotten to this point, you can get the value of x by just simplifying connecting like terms. Here I'm going to have 2x equals to 5. Solve for the value of x. This over 2, this over 2, x equals to 5 all over 2. Now let's deal with the second part. X is equals to -1. Okay, so the solution to that question is x, which is the number, equals to 2 whole number 1 over 2 or -1. You understand? That is the solution to, that is the number that we are asked to determine. You understand? That is the number that we are asked to determine. So if you got this, you are correct. Okay, so that will be all for this class. In this class, we are going to learn how to solve word problem leading to quadratic equation. Okay, let's start with the first question. The product of two consecutive positive odd numbers is 195. By constructing a quadratic equation and solving it, find the two numbers. Okay, now let's you see, word problem is an aspect of mathematics that, number one, they want to test your ability to understand and interpret question. Okay, so in this case we are going to be interpreting the question into quadratic equation, then we are going to solve the quadratic equation. Okay, so let's start. The product of two consecutive positive odd numbers. Now pay attention to that statement. Positive odd numbers. What are odd numbers? Odd numbers differs by the difference between two odd number is 2. Are you paying attention? The difference between two consecutive odd number is 2. Let's say that the first odd number is 1. What will be the second consecutive odd number? That will be what? 3. Okay, so 1 plus 2 is what? 3. 3 plus 2 is what? 5. 5 plus 2 is what? 7. 7 plus 2 is what? 9. 9 plus 2 is what? 11. 11 plus 2 is what? That is 13. 13 plus 2 is 15. So these are odd number and they differs by what? They differs by 2. You understand? That is the first thing that I want you to take note. Okay, so let's go back to the question. The product of two consecutive positive odd number, that means that both odd number are positive. So let the odd number be x. Hello, see, I'm going to explain. Okay, you just have to pay attention. The product of two consecutive positive odd number is 195. So let the odd number equals to x. Okay, now the first odd number will be what? X, because we are dealing with two odd number now. For example, let's take, for instance, let's say we want to take two consecutive odd number among this, among all these odd number that I wrote on the chalkboard. Let's say we want to take two consecutive odd number. We can either choose 1 and 3, or 3 and 5, or 9 and 11, or 13 and 15. They are consecutive because they follows after each other. You understand? The odd number after 13 is what? 15. After 15 is what? 17. You understand? So that is why we call it consecutive. You understand? So now if the first odd number be x, the second odd number will be what? X plus 2, because I've already let you understand that odd number differs by what? By 2. You understand? The difference between two consecutive odd number is what? 2. So for example, let's say for instance 3 minus 1 is what? 2. 5 minus 3 is what? 2. 9 minus 7, 2. You understand? So now the difference is 2. That means that if this is the first odd number, the second odd number will be x plus 2. You understand? Okay? So now let's go back to the question. We are told that the product of these two consecutive positive odd number is 195. So let us take the product of these two numbers. That means I'm going to have x multiplied by x plus 2. You understand? Okay? Is equals to 195. Do you understand? Okay? Now, here I'm going to have x into bracket x plus 2 is equals to 195. X times x, that is x squared. X times plus 2, that is plus 2x, is equals to 195. Okay? Now, the next step is that I'm going to take this 195, I'm going to let it crosses the equals to sign to the left hand side of the equation. You know, in an attempt to solve quadratic equation, a typical quadratic equation look like this: ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. You understand? So, but I'm having 195 at the right hand side of the equation. So, I'm going to take this 195 to the left hand side. So, I'm going to have x squared plus 2x minus 195 equals to 0. You understand? Okay? Now, this is the quadratic equation that you're going to solve. By solving this quadratic equation, we're going to get the two positive odd number. Okay? Now, which method are you going to use to solve this quadratic equation? Let's solve it using the factorization method. Okay? Now, to solve this using the factorization method, you just have to think of two numbers such that when you take their product, you are going to have negative 495, and when you take their sum, you are going to have positive 2. What are those two numbers? Those two numbers are negative 13 and 15. You understand? So, having done that, you are going to replace the second term by those two numbers. You see? If you want to learn more on how to factorize quadratic equation or how to solve quadratic equation using the factorization method, you can check this channel, check the playlist. Okay, I made it simpler in that case. Okay, so let's proceed. Here I'm going to have x squared plus 15 minus 13 x minus 195 equals to 0. Okay, 15 multiplied by 13 will give negative 15 multiplied by 13 will give us negative 195. 15 minus 13 will give us what? Positive 2. So I just replace positive 2 by this. You understand? Okay, so I'm going to have x squared plus 15x minus 13x minus 195 equals to 0. Okay, now I'm going to divide this fraction. I'm going to divide this equation by, I'm going to divide it into 2. Okay, the first part being this and the second part being this. Now we are going to factorize. Let us factorize now. What is common to x squared and 15x? The common term between x squared and positive 15x is what? Is x. So I'm going to have x into bracket x plus 15. Are you paying attention? Okay. Now what is common to negative 13x? Hello, listen. Okay. What is common to negative 13x and negative 195? The common term is negative 13. You understand? So here I'm going to have negative 13 into bracket x plus 15. This will be equals to 0. Do you understand? Okay, we have gotten to this point. What are we going to do? All you have to do is that you can see that we have the same content in the first and the second bracket. So we are going to choose one bracket. Hence, I'm going to have x plus 15 equals to 0. Then the factor, which are x, the factor of each bracket, which are x and negative 13, I'm going to bring them together. So I'm going to have x minus 13 as well equals to 0. Okay? Just pay attention, okay? Now, by solving that linear equation, we're going to get the value of x. So here, I'm going to have x is equals to negative 15 and x is equals to 13. So, because we are told in the question that the numbers are positive, you understand? You know, in the question we are given that the product of two consecutive positive odd number. So we are going to disregard the negative 15 and we are going to accept this. Are you paying attention? You know, we are told that the numbers are positive. So we are going to focus on x is equals to 13. Now, this is not the final answer. We are going to go back to the question. X is equals to 13. So the first number is what? Is x. So the first number x is equals to 13. The second number is what? X plus 2. And x plus 2 is equals to what? 13 plus 2, which is what? 15. So the two numbers are 13 and 15 respectively. Do you understand? The two positive consecutive odd number are 13 and 15 respectively. Trust you understand. If you didn't understand, listen to the explanation again. You know that when I start this solving, I said let the odd number be x. So I represent the first number with x. The second number with what? X plus 2. Okay? So the first number is x. I got the value of x as 13. So the first number, the first positive odd number is 13. The second positive odd number will be x plus 2, which is what? 15. So that is the solution to that question. If you have any question, let me know in the comment section. In this class, we are going to learn how to solve word problem leading to quadratic equation. Okay, let's start with the first question. Find two consecutive numbers whose product is 156. Okay, we are given that the product of these two numbers is 156. Solution. What do we mean by consecutive number? Consecutive numbers are numbers that differs by 1. You understand? When we say that two consecutive numbers, those numbers differs by 1. That is, the difference between those numbers is 1. For example, let's say that the first number is 1. The second number will be what? Will be 2. You understand? The second number will be 1 plus 1. While the third will be 1 plus 1 plus 1. While the fourth will be 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. You understand? That is 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth and the fifth will be 4 plus 1. Do you understand? You see, when we talk about consecutive number are number. Two consecutive number means that number differs by 1. For example, if you talk about if the first number is 1, the second number must be 2. You understand? If the first number is 4, the second number must be 4 plus 1, which is 5. You understand? Now let's go back to the question. The reason why I delve into that is that so that when you come across this question in the exam, when you see two consecutive numbers are numbers that differs by 1. The difference between the two numbers is 1. Do you understand? Okay. Now we are given that find two consecutive numbers whose product is 156. We don't know the two numbers, so let us represent the number as x. Okay. Let the first number be okay. The first number, let it be x. You understand? So the second number will be what? The second number will be x plus 1. Will be x plus 1. Do you know how I got this? I've already explained to you that consecutive number are those numbers that differs by 1. You understand? The difference between x plus 1 and x is what? Is 1. Do you understand? Okay. So we are given that the product of these two numbers is equals to what? 156. So we are going to take their product. X multiplied by x plus 1 equals to 156. Okay. So here I'm going to have x into bracket x plus 1 equals to 156. Now, let us open the bracket. X times x is what? X squared. Plus x times 1 is what? X equals to 156. Okay? So here, we can solve this. Let us rearrange this, the quadratic equation. You can see it's a quadratic equation. So let us rearrange it. So here I'm going to have x squared plus x minus 156 equals to 0. Do you understand? Okay, now we can solve this equation using the general formula or the factorization method, and we can as well use the completing the square method. Okay, so depending on any method that you want to use, but in this case I'm going to be using the factorization method. Peradventure, if you missed our class on factorization method, if you didn't know how to solve quadratic equation on factorization method, we've discussed that in our class. Okay, so if you missed the class, kindly check the description of this video or check the channel and check the click on the playlist quadratic equation. You are going to see numerous examples that I've solved. Okay, so yeah, to solve this using the factorization method, the first step is that you have to think of two numbers, because the coefficient of x squared is 1. We just have to think of two numbers such that when we take the product of these two numbers, we're going to have minus 56, and if we add these two numbers together, we're going to have plus 1. We are going to think of two numbers such that when you take the product of these two numbers, okay, you're going to have negative 56, and when you add these two numbers together, you're going to have plus 1. Okay, if you all this we've discussed in our previous class, so if you missed the class, I explained very well in the class, so you can revert back to the class and watch those videos. Okay, now, so what are the two numbers such that if I take their product, I'm going to have minus 156, and if I sum them together, I'm going to have plus 1. Do you know where I got plus 1? The coefficient of x here is plus 1. You understand? So what are those two numbers? Let's check. What are the two numbers such that if I take their product, I'm going to have negative 156, and if I add them together, I'm going to have plus 1. The two numbers are plus 13 and minus 12. You understand? Plus 13 and minus 12. So let's check. Plus 13. Okay, 13 is also the same thing as plus 13. You understand? 13 multiplied by 12 will give us 156. 13 plus minus 12 will give us, it's minus 13 multiplied by negative 12, that will give us negative 156, and 13 plus minus 12 will give us 13 minus 12, which is what? 1. Do you understand? So those two numbers that I need are what? They are 13 and 12. So here I'm going to replace that the second term, which is the coefficient of x here. I'm going to replace it by these two numbers. You understand? So here I'm going to have x squared plus, instead of plus 1, I'm going to replace it as 13 minus 12. So I'm going to have plus 13 minus 12 x minus 156 equals to 0. You see, what I did here is that having known the two numbers such that if I take their product, I'm going to have negative 156, and if I sum them together, I'm going to have plus 1, because there is an invisible 1 in the front of this ears, as the coefficient of this x. You understand? So I replace this one by 13 minus 12. If you take the difference between 13 and 12, you're going to have what? Plus 1. You understand? Okay, so let us proceed. Here I'm going to have x squared. Okay, now open the bracket. Plus 13x minus 12x minus 156 equals to 0. Do you understand it to this point? If you didn't understand, kindly reverse the video and listen to the explanation again. Okay, so having gotten here, all you have to do now is to factorize. Okay, but before we factorize, I'm going to separate this equation into two. The first part being here and the second part being this. You understand? So I'm going to have separated the equation into two. Now I'm going to factorize each part. Let us start for the first part. What is common to x squared and 13x? X is common, so I'm going to have x into bracket x plus 13. Are you paying attention? Now, what is common to negative 12x and negative 156? Negative 12 is common, so I'm going to have minus 12 into bracket x plus 13. You see, when you are dealing with, when you get to this point, what you have in the first bracket must be the same as what you have in the second bracket. You understand? So otherwise, you are not going to get this. You are not going to get the right answer. If you factorize your own quadratic equation and you see that what you have here is not the same thing as what you have here, that means that something is wrong. Okay, what you have here, you must have the same thing and the second bracket. Okay, as you can see, I have x plus 13 and x plus 13, and if you open this bracket, you are still going to have all this. Okay, so having gotten here, you can see that the content in both brackets are the same. So I'm going to take one bracket. So I'm going to have, for this, I'm going to have x plus 13 equals to 0. Okay, this is equals to 0. X plus 13 equals to 0. Then, now I'm going to combine the factored, you understand, outside the bracket, that is x and negative 12. So I'm going to have x minus 12 equals to 0 as well. Now x will be equals to, now if this 13 crosses the equals to sign, it's going to change to negative. That is negative 13, and x is equals to 12 as well. So the two numbers are negative 13 and 12. You understand? So that is the solution to that question. Okay, let's have another question. The sum of two consecutive odd numbers is negative 4. Find the two numbers. What are odd numbers? Odd numbers are numbers that differs by 2. You understand? When we talk about consecutive odd number, these numbers differs by 2. So let's say the first number is 1, the second number will be what? Will be 3. You understand? Because the odd, two consecutive odd number differs by 2. So that means that, please pay attention. If the first number is 5, the second number will be what? 5 plus 2. That will be what? 7. 5 and 7. Are you paying attention? But now we don't know the number. You understand? We are asked to determine the number. I just cite this example so that you will know the difference between the two consecutive odd number. When we talk about two consecutive odd number, these numbers differs by 2. You understand? Okay. What are odd number? Example of odd number are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. We have 13, we have 15. Those are odd number. And if you take note of the difference between these two, those odd numbers that I just mentioned, we realize that those numbers differ by what? By 2. You understand? So when we talk about two consecutive odd number, we are talking about numbers that differs by 2. You understand? The difference between these numbers is 2. So we don't know this number. We are asked to determine the number. Now, how do we do that? You see, we are still going to proceed with the same approach. Let's look at the question. The sum of two consecutive odd number is negative 4. So since we don't know the two consecutive odd number, we're going to say that let the first number be y. You understand? The second number will be what? Will be y plus 1. The second number will be y plus 2. Okay, the second number will be y plus 2 because we are now dealing with two consecutive odd number. If it is ordinary two consecutive number, you know that two consecutive number differs by 1. So we are going to have y plus 1, but it is odd number. You understand? And I've already explained to you. Okay, so the second number will be y plus 2. Now, the sum of these two numbers is negative 4. So let's take their sum. Y plus 2 equals to negative 4. So here I'm going to have 2y plus 2 equals to negative 4. Are you paying attention? You have been given in the question that the sum of these two numbers is equals to negative 4. So I just take their sum. Y plus 2. So here I'm going to connect like terms. 2y is equals to negative 4. If this positive 2 crosses the equals to sign, it's going to change to negative. So I'm going to have negative 2. Okay, you understand? So I'm going to have 2y is equals to negative 4, negative 2. What will be the answer? Negative 6. Negative 6 divided by 2. This over 2. Y is equals to negative 6 divided by 2. What is the answer? That is negative 3. So y is equals to negative 3. So the first number is what? Is negative 3. That is negative 3. And the second number is what? Y plus 2. The first number is y. So y is what? Negative 3. The second number is y plus 2. So y plus 2 will be equals to negative 3 plus 2. So that will be what? Negative 3 plus 2 is what? Negative 1. So that will be negative 1. Do you see now? So the two numbers are, please pay attention. The two numbers are negative 3 and negative 1. Okay, the two numbers are negative 3 and negative 1. You can see now. So that is the solution to the question. You see, when you are dealing with word problem, they want to test your ability to interpret question. Okay, even though you know, I'm very sure if you come across this question, ordinarily you'll be able to solve it. But how do you derive this equation if you didn't understand how to if you didn't understand, if your knowledge is not deep in word problem? Okay, so it is very important that you learn how to solve word problem, so that by the time you come across this question in exam, you will not fail. That is the solution to the question. You see, it is very important. It is very important that you learn how to interpret question. And if you want to do that, you have to practice more questions. So if you want more questions, you can check the playlist on this channel. Okay, watch those videos, practice the question, and you'll become better. Okay, so let's have the third work example. Okay, adding 42 to a given positive number gives the same result as squaring the number. Find the number. Okay, now if you look at that question, you will discover that, okay, let me erase this. Adding 42 to a given positive number. Okay, solution. Now we want to construct our equation now. Okay, we don't know the number. Okay, we are not given the number. We are only given an information that is related to the number, and the information is that if we add 42 to a given positive number, the same result is as squaring the number. Now let's say let the number be any letter. You understand? In this case, I'm going to choose A. Let the number be A. Okay, so here I'm going to add 42 to A. So I'm going to have A plus 42 is equals to. Now let's go back to the question. Adding 42 to a given positive number, we have already added 42. The same result gives the same result as squaring the number. So now that means that if we add 42 to A, is equals to A squared. You can see now. Do you understand what I did here? That is the interpretation of the question. If we add 42 to a given number, we are going to have the same result as the square of the number. We don't know the number, so we represent it as A. So I add A to 42, I have 42 to A. Then I is equals to the square of A. You understand? Okay? Now, from this point, this is a quadratic equation because the highest power of the unknown is what? Is 2. So I'm going to collect right hand. I'm going to have A squared minus A minus 42 is equals to 0. Okay? You know what I did? Look, I just moved this A to the other side of the equation, and I move this 42 to the other side of the equation. So if this A crosses the equals to sign, it's going to change to negative. So I have negative A. If this positive 42 crosses the equals to sign, it's going to change to negative. So I'm going to have negative 42. Do you understand? Equals to 0. Okay? Now, how do we solve this question? We can solve this question using three methods. Either completing the squared, the general formula, or the factorization method. Okay, but in this case, I'm going to make use of the formula method. Okay, here I'm going to have A is equals to minus B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. This is the formula method. Okay, in this case, A is okay. This A that you see here is not the same as the A in the parameters of the formula. Okay, A here is the coefficient of A squared. You understand? And the coefficient of A squared is what? Is 1. Hello, please pay attention. B is the coefficient of A, and the coefficient of A is what? Is negative 1. You understand? And C is the constant term. The constant term in the quadratic equation is what? Negative 42. Okay, please, all you have to do is just to pay attention. These are simple things that you have to understand. Okay, we've learned this in our previous class, so I didn't expect you to find it difficult to solve. Okay, so here let us proceed. A is equals to minus 1 because B is what? B is minus 1. minus minus 1 plus or minus square root of b squared, that is negative 1 squared, minus 4ac minus 4 multiplied by 1 multiplied by negative 42 all over 2 multiplied by 1, because 2 a is what? A is 1. Maybe I should write it out. A is equals to 1, b is equals to negative 1, and c is equals to negative 42. Okay, so all we have to do is just to simplify this. Let's proceed. A is equals to 1 plus or minus square root of negative 1 square is 1. So negative 42 multiplied by negative 4, that is give us 168. That is plus 168 plus 168 all over 2, because 2 multiplied by 1 will give us 2. Okay, so here I'm going to have A is equals to 1 plus or minus square root of 169 all over 2. Now we have gotten to this point. What is the square root of 169? The square root of 169 is 13. So I'm going to have A is equals to 1 plus or minus 13 all over 2. Okay, so I'm going to separate this now. A is equals to 1 plus 13 all over 2, or 1 minus 13 all over 2. Okay, A is equals to 14 all over 2, or negative 12 all over 2. Okay, A is equals to 7 or negative 6. Okay, so please pay attention. Please kindly pay attention. Let's go back to the question. Adding 42 to a given positive number, the same result is as squaring the number. Now, if you look at the question, we are given that the number is positive. Are you paying attention? So we are going to pick the positive A. You understand? We have negative A and we have positive A. The positive A is what? 7, and the negative A is what? Negative 6. You understand? So A is equals to 7, which is the number, because we are given in the question that the number is positive. So A is equals to 7, which is the answer. Now let us check if this if 7 fits into if 7 fits into our equation. You understand? Okay, we have A plus 42 is equals to A squared. Let us substitute the value of A into this quadratic equation. A plus 42, I'm going to have 7 plus 42 is equals to 7 squared. Is this correct? Let's check. 7 plus 42 is what? 49. So I'm going to have 49. Now 7 squared is what? 49. So I'm going to have 49 as well. So the solution to that question is A is equals to 7. Okay, so that will be all for this class. If you have any question regarding this class, so that will be all for this class. If you have any question regarding what we've learned in this class, kindly let me know in the comment section. Okay.